All right, everybody. So today we have Isaiah Sampson from the UCLA School of Dentistry. Isaiah, thank you so much for joining us today, man.
Thank you for having me. I've been watching the show for literally forever. So it's super cool. It's super
No, we appreciate it, bro. We appreciate it. But anyway, man, let's go ahead and get into it. If you can, give us just like a brief history of your journey into dental school. So basically, where you're from, where you went to undergrad, what you major in, and did you or did you not take a year off?
Yeah, so I had a pretty interesting upbringing. I've lived like in a whole bunch of different states. Growing up, I lived in 6 different states. So I went to South Carolina, to Washington, to Hawaii, to Tennessee, to Arizona, and then to California.
Yeah.
And so for undergrad, I went to Arizona State, which is why I was in Arizona. And my major was microbiology, and my minor was music. And so that was a pretty weird difference, but it's a cool thing to study that way. And then in terms of a gap year, I graduated May of 2019, and then I went into dental school September 2019. So I didn't take a gap year. Yeah.
Okay. And so I'm assuming your DAT was strong. I just know how it is. Like when you go straight from undergrad directly into dental school. I mean, you had to have decent stats or whatever it may be. So a lot of our viewers ask us like, what's our number one tip for the DAT? And I just wanted to kind of pass that question along to you.
Yeah. So for this, I think something that's really important is always being cognizant of a couple of different things. So first, being cognizant of what your strength areas are, then cognizant of how you're doing, and then being cognizant of how you're preparing yourself. So for the first one, when you're being cognizant of like just strengths and weaknesses in general, it's really important, crucially important at the beginning to be able to evaluate that super early, so you can know which places need special attention, which places that you can use to really bump your score. And then in terms of certain subject areas, it's important to be cognizant of just like on each individual question, which questions that you're struggling on, which areas you're struggling on. So say you're struggling on NMR, you need to know that, do a whole bunch of NMR problems, because if you know struggling on NMR, that's probably going to come up, and you can't miss that many questions on the DAT.
Right.
There's huge differences in missing like one or two questions on the DAT. So individual questions, knowing which parts you're struggling with, and that also helps because when you're answering questions, for me at least, it really helps to be able to know what the question's asking rather than just reading the question. So I read a question being like, okay, this is referencing this type of material. So thinking through the process of the material and then answering the question rather than just being so stuck on the question and the answer choices that it kind of defeats the purpose of the knowledge.
Yep.
Third part is just knowing and being stern in what you're doing to prepare yourself. So if you're going to set a study schedule, making sure you're sticking to that study schedule. You're not saying, oh, I'm going to just study tomorrow. And
It happens.
Yeah. And it's super hard, and that's way easier said than done, but making sure you're sticking to your schedule. These are things I think are super important, but mostly being really cognizant of where you are, and each individual question it seems like a big thing to me.
No, I like how you said, for the sake of the knowledge, because like you'll see people almost like memorize the questions and they won't kind of have a comprehensive look of the actual material that the question is based off of. And that's how a lot of people get like slip, and people will boost their egos and retake the same practice quiz. And I'm like, the answer.
28 on my practice test.
Yeah, I'm like, what? So you can't lie to yourself. It's not worth it. Like you end up losing at the end. So no, that was good. What about resources? Like, did you use? I know a lot of people have been using DAT Bootcamp. Like, was that something that you used or?
I used DAT Bootcamp, but I wasn't the biggest fan of it.
Okay.
Just because the difficulty of the questions in comparison to the other resource I used. So I used DAT Destroyer.
Okay.
And the questions on DAT Destroyer are like they're way more difficult than the questions on the DAT you're going to see. And they usually require you to know a whole bunch of different things in order to answer a question. And so for the DAT Destroyer, I like those questions for like the bio and the chem and the OChem and the math. But then for like, they don't have the perceptive aspect on the Destroyer. So for that, I used Bootcamp. And then you have more practice tests and everything with Bootcamp. So for like the point of education, I like the DAT Destroyer, but in terms of organization, I liked Bootcamp because it gives you practice tests and videos and like little section tests and everything like that. But Both of those, I think, together is a really good resource. But if you can only afford one, DAT Bootcamp is probably the way to go, just because it's more comprehensive.
Okay. Okay. Awesome. Awesome. And so, so you said you went to Arizona State,
Mhm.
but now you're at UCLA. So how did you kind of show interest in the school? I mean, like, did you go to any like pre-dental programs or anything like that? Or does your school even have those type of programs? Like, how did you kind of show UCLA that you were interested?
And so my application was a little weird because there wasn't anything dental on my application except for my shadowing hours.
Okay. Okay.
Terms of reaching out or making schools know that I was interested in them, I really didn't do that much of it when I was an undergrad because I was more focused on like doing teaching and research and stuff like that. So I wasn't involved in any pre-dental programs, but UCLA has previously had one where there's a workshop taught by this guy who he teaches you like tooth anatomy and how to wax and teaches you like dental instrumentation. But unfortunately, they discontinued that. I'm sure they'll bring one up soon, but they discontinued that. But for now, we have the summer health professions educations program.
Yep.
So that is for like disadvantaged students, and they could come in for like 6 weeks, and they do stuff like problem-based learning and cases and classes and different activities and stuff like that. So they have that, and then we have a really cool post-bac program where they come and they take classes with the dental students. So they'll be taking like not histology, they'll take like cardiology with us. They'll take like dental morphology and occlusion with us. They'll wax with us. They take like evidence-based dentistry with us. And so it's a really cool opportunity for people who are maybe if you're not just a pre-dental student in undergrad, you have the opportunity to show interest in the school and then um, get that stuff that you need in order to boost your application.
Right. Right. Okay.
We have those
Smooth.
two.
Smooth.
We have
And
those two.
so, oh, go ahead. My bad.
We just have those two things mainly right now. We had the other pre-dental thing
Right.
previously.
And hopefully that one comes back. Right. Right. Right.
That's
Okay.
needed.
And so, what about your interview? You know, a lot of people are nervous about the interview, you know, and it's a major day, but typically like once you get through it, you're done with it and it's not as bad. But of course, on the front end, people are super nervous. So can you kind of like walk us through what your actual interview day was like?
Yeah, I remember this interview day like it was, but mainly because it was my first interview, so I was like
Mm-hmm.
super excited, super nervous, and I was like, all my family's from here, so it was like a super cool experience. But anyway, so we came in and they had us all meet in this room where we were just talking to all the other applicants, and we were all just talking about, oh, so what was your major, blah blah blah,
Yeah,
doing
yeah.
all this. And then they took the group and then they brought us into a room where they just had a little bit of an introduction to what the day is going to be like, what the school is like, how they're excited, all that noise. And then we get into the essay portion where we wrote a very quick essay. I can't tell you what it was about, but it's just like a very short, not a very intense essay. You write that. And then after the essay question, they break us into two groups. The first group was going to be interviewed, and then the second group went down to the bookstore to get their sizes for their white coats, get their sizes for scrubs, get their sizes for gloves, and all that kind of stuff. You get to try it on and stuff. It's pretty cool.
Wow. Early, early.
Yeah, they're like trying to make you feel good.
All right.
Yeah, and so they break us into those groups, and then after that, you switch the groups. Another group goes to interview, and then after interviews, they bring us back together, and then we all take a tour,
Mm-hmm.
and then after the tour, the day's done. But as far as the interview itself, UCLA specifically was the most chill interview I had out of all. It was so chill. It wasn't anything what I expected dental school interview to be like. So like we came in and he just asked for like a quick pitch of my research in undergrad, gave him the quick pitch, and then for the rest of the time we talked about music. Like talked about Erica Badu, talked about playing instruments, we just pretty much talked about music for the rest of the time. And then he was like, okay, so do you have any questions? I was like, oh.
Okay, that's it. Like,
Yeah, it really took probably like 7 to 8 minutes of like actual interviewing.
wow.
Yeah, 7 to 8 minutes, and then I was out of there. It was really chill interview.
That's cool. That's cool. Okay, cool, cool, cool. And so, you interviewed. Obviously, you got in. How was your first year? You know, I mean, you're in it right now, and of course, it's a little bit different because of the virus and everything that's going on. But how has it been so far? Like, what are your classes like? Do you all have clinical type of exposure? Like, how is everything?
And so it's a pretty cool experience in terms of like didactically. So when coming in transitioning from undergrad to dental school, luckily my undergrad, like since I was a TA and in my major, it gave me a lot of preparation in terms of background material that I'd know for dental school. And so didactically, it's been a cool transition. The main thing is that volume is tragically different. Volume is so much bigger in dental school than it was in undergrad, and so that's been an adjustment, but it's a cool adjustment because um, as you go on, you get the higher capacity to be able to adapt new information. So 50 slides at the first day of dental school is way different than 50 slides now. So 50 slides now, okay, but 50 slides at the beginning, you're like, oh, this is gonna be all weekend, blah blah blah.
Right, right.
Cool. But in terms of how this school is set up, one of the weird things that I thought, so in undergrad, we would have like different lectures for one class, but it'd be like one or two at most, or like 3 or 4 at most for one class. But we have like different lectures all the time in dental school, which is really weird. You're constantly having to adjust to different teaching styles. And different testing styles too, because they write the questions. So that's been really cool. It's been cool to be on your toes all the time, having to constantly adjust to things. But it is kind of weird having to be on an exam, being like, okay, who asked it? Oh, they asked this question.
You can tell by the style of it, right?
They asked the question. They wrote this question. And certain professors ask way more difficult questions. You're like, dang, Doctor blah 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 is killing me right now.
Right.
Yeah. And so didactically, it's been cool. It's been an adjustment, but it's been definitely a fun adjustment, especially seeing how fast we're able to adapt information now as opposed to when we first started. And in terms of clinical exposure, they've been trying to get us working on our hand skills a little bit earlier. And so obviously during the first quarter, we were waxing, but then at the end of the first quarter, they started us drilling, which was really cool. They moved that up a few weeks. And so we started doing basic drilling, and then now we're in like the full-fledged portion of direct. And so they're trying to get us more and more adapted to the hand skills aspect of things. We have like the previous years they had to do like a class 1 for their final, and so they've moved it so where we're doing a class 2 for our final. So they're accelerating how much we're going to be doing in terms of our hand skills. We haven't really been into clinic that much, but the clubs and organizations, so like I'm in a sports dentistry club, and we've been in clinic because we had to do things like impressions and stuff like that in order to like do mouth guards and stuff. So that's been pretty cool. But we could do more clinically, but they're definitely doing their part in helping us adjust to at least clinical skills early on.
Awesome, awesome. No, I like the part where you said like the 50 slides in the beginning is completely different from the 50 slides now, because like I always tell people, dentistry will teach you, or at least dental school will teach you like how much you can really do even in a day. You know, like you can get a lot done, and it's like, granted, it might be intimidating at first, but literally, I mean, a couple months later from when you start, you know, you'll have picked up on the speed of everything, and you just see how much you can really retain from these slides and everything within one day. So it's pretty cool. And that helps out in other facets of life. You know, if you have side projects going on or whatever it may be, you see that you can get a lot done in those 24 hours. A lot, a lot.
Can adjust, knowing that you have the ability to adjust and that your brain's naturally going to adjust. It helps you get through when it gets a little bit tougher, because you're like, I'm gonna get used to this. This is just hard for like the next week or two because
Exactly. And so I'm asking every different school this. What do you think, or what do you know is unique about UCLA School of Dentistry?
So the big thing that I know is unique is our grading system. So we're pass fail, which is nice because like in undergrad, you're like, I have to get 100 on all these. I'm so stressed out. If I don't get 100, I have to get a 95. And if I get a 95, if I get below 90, oh my gosh. And so you're just so
cool, right?
You're so focused on the grades all the time. And that's like, in terms of education system, that's not what it's supposed to be for. But when you're trying, you know, you have a goal in sight and you know the goal has certain criteria, you're so focused on making sure that you're meeting those criteria. So you're so focused on in undergrad making sure you're getting the grade, and then the knowledge is like secondary or low key by diffusion. Yeah. And so in undergrad, not in dental school, since we're pass fail, your learning can be completely focused on the knowledge itself, which is really And although different, like we're pass fail, but different classes have different criteria for pass. So like,
Mm.
so classes like our systems class, systems will be like a 70 to pass. But then say radiology, it won't be like a whole course grade to pass. You have to like get an 80 on the first exam, an 80 on the second exam, and then a 70 on the final exam in order to pass.
Mm.
Either way, you're just so focused on learning the information because you don't have to know, okay, pluses or minuses and A's and B's. We do have honors, but that's just for like the top 10% of the class, so like 8 or 9 students. So you're really just focused on being able to get the information that you need in order to be a good practitioner. And then all of the other stuff is secondary.
So, I mean, you might not know this yet, you know, because you're not there yet. But I was wondering if you wanted to specialize, like, how does the whole class ranking system kind of work out? Do you know anything about that yet, or?
We don't have a class ranking. I've heard that we have an internal class ranking, but we don't have like a class ranking, and we don't have grades. And so really, what they were telling me that specializing is depending on is our letters of rec and our extracurricular activities.
Mm.
Since we don't have grades, it allows people to at least mentally have the opportunity to focus a lot more on extracurricular activities, because you're not under like the overwhelming stress of feeling like you have to get a perfect score on everything. And so you could know when you learn the material, and then you could put a lot of energy into extracurricular activities, and then putting a lot of energy into relationships in order to be able to have strong letters of rec. And so those are mainly the two things that this comes down to.
I think that's better. I mean, honestly.
Some people say there's disadvantages because, say, if you have a student who's #1 in their class and they have like a 4.0 GPA versus someone who you don't have that much information on except for the institution. So some people have different ideas on it. I like it because on a day-to-day basis, it just makes it a lot more bearable.
Mm-hmm.
But I can see where people would think there would be disadvantages.
Right, something that's like tangible. Like I have this score, like I deserve this position. Okay, I mean, yeah, yeah. But hey, just because you make a 4.0 does not mean you're going to be a good dentist, or you know. So that's also the other, I don't know, caveat to that. But yeah, yeah, I can see both both arguments definitely.
And then some residency programs are doing tests like the GRE for ortho, and then the ADAT for endo, and then like the surgery. So it's like there are different methods in order to evaluate people beyond class rank and GPA, but sometimes when there aren't those things, like for GPR and stuff like that, it does make it a little bit interesting.
A little bit different. True. But okay. And so, all right, bro. And so for the last question of the interview, if you were able to go back in time and talk to yourself while you were going through the actual application process, what's that one piece of advice that you would give to yourself?
So I would say to gather as much information on like the culture and the types of things that each school is involved in prior to going there. And so if you go to the school, you know how to navigate the system a little bit better. So if you know that certain faculty are involved in this type of stuff, like this type of research or doing research in general, or if you know that this school is really big on doing these type of community outreach events, or like the clubs are geared towards this or this, if you can get all of that type of information, it makes it a lot easier for you to, well, #1, set a plan for when you're going into school, and for 2, being able to navigate that system when you're in there. So if you're knowing that they have a big, so for me, I like research, and I'm planning on doing research in a little bit, but if you know that they do this type of research and this type of research is really good at this school, you're able to navigate that. And instead of being in the point where you're just like, I don't know what research I want to get into, yada, 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 you're able to be like, okay, so this is a really big point of interest for this school. And so that makes it a lot easier for you to be able to navigate into what you want to do in terms of that subject. And then in general, just knowing stuff about what this class culture is like, and knowing stuff about like what the didactic culture like, what the clinical culture is like, being able to know how to navigate that a lot easier makes the whole transition a ton easier for
Really?
for lack
It
of
does. It does.
gathering as much information as you can about the culture of the school and the things that the school is involved in, and the things the school likes to do, just makes it easier when you're getting into the school.
So Isaiah, thank you so much, man. We know that your time is very valuable, so we definitely do appreciate you coming talking to us today. If any of the viewers have any questions, what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
So my phone number, I'm just kidding.
I was gonna be like, no.
I'm always on Instagram. So my Instagram is IzzySamp, IZZYSAMP. And if they don't have Instagram, they can reach out by email. It's IsaiahRSampson@gmail.com. So IsaiahRSampson@gmail.com. And I'm always open to answering a whole bunch of questions.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you, bro. I'll definitely put those in the description box below. But once again, bro, from the FutureDDS family, we really do appreciate it. And thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you for having me. I love these videos, so it's really
No, man. No, we appreciate it. And you're going to help a lot of students. So everybody's saying thank you to you. And I'm sure you're going to get a lot of questions because I know a lot of people want to go to UCLA. So for sure. But everybody, if you haven't already, make sure you hit the subscribe button below. If you have any questions for Terrell and I, you can shoot us a DM on Instagram @_FutureDDS, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. But other than that, see y'all later.